What's going on, everybody? Good morning, good evening, wherever you are and whatever time it is, and welcome back to another video with your man, Measureholic. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of my Spartan Pharaoh campaign for DeI at Impera in Total War Rome 2, episode 11. Today we will be continuing the Macedonian Wars. That's right, we are now fully engulfed in the wars with Macedonia and her allies. And today we are going to make some very solid gains, but also have some devastating losses. But we will be starting this video off by taking one of our first losses. In the previous video, if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you check it out. But we did recently suffer a defeat outside of Larissa, and as such, the Macedonians are now marching on the town itself, and they will just auto-resolve it away and take it from us just like that. It's not the end of the world. It is just a small minor town. However, they did pay a heavy price for it. They lost a lot of their men, but we lost some of our most dearest generals. Again, try not to spoil too much, but highly recommend go back and check out the last video if you missed it. In the meantime, though, the Odrysian usurpers are coming in and taking Anthea, which is one of the Thracian settlements we have recently conquered by King Arius, and so that's going to be very annoying. We kind of have a little bit of a cat and mouse situation happening with these Odrysians. King Arius was marching on their capital at Odessos to the north. However, they've just swung around him and attacked Anthea by sea. So as such, we are now going to take Odessos from them. We're just going to auto-resolve it away. Should be a pretty easy one. And then hopefully we will march back down to Anthea before they can come up and take Odessos from us. But oh man, dealing with these Thracians has been very frustrating, so hopefully we can now tie them up and get rid of them permanently. We only lose a couple hundred guys, nothing too severe. If I did want to min-max, I probably should fight almost every single battle manually, but I'm not too worried about it. Things are looking okay. Back down in Africa, though, Cleomenes III is leading an army to deal with the last of the Siwa faction who would join the Egyptians against us. We had taken this settlement, and now we were just hunting down their remnant forces in the desert outside. And Cleomenes will take a lot of casualties from the harsh desert, though, and as such, it'll take a few more turns before he's ready to march in the Egyptians. However, the Egyptians are starting to amass quite a few armies in the west of Libya, and that could be a big problem for us. We'll see later on in the episode. But while he was doing that, back up in Greece, we are now recruiting a massive navy. We received a crap ton of money for completing an objective. We received over like 20,000 gold or something, and as such, we're now going to hire a bunch of mercenaries all at once, and we will send out the fleet led by Leonidas II to hunt down the Macedonian navy. Until now, they had dominance over the Aegean, but now we are planning to change that with this massive battle here. Our fleet against theirs. Let's do it. And here we are. We're having a three-line formation. Even though we technically have more ships than them, their ships are better and they have more people and they are generally larger. So my basic strategy is to have my two front formations combine their attacks together, and then the third line will be there to support and be directed to come in and ram the enemy as needed. And of course, we also have our admiral in the rear. I always recommend you try to keep your admiral at the rear because the enemy will focus fire on your admiral. You can see here my admiral is getting hammered, but so is the enemy navy. They lose their entire front line within the first ramming charge, and then instantly, because of our formation, I'm able to do group attack orders on the enemy and just start smashing into the sides of their ships very, very quickly. And this battle is going to take like 1 or 2 minutes. It was insanely fast. And I'm showing you pretty much all of the footage here for it. But that formation, I feel like, worked out really, really well. I could have enveloped them and surrounded them, but it would have taken a lot longer for my ships to come in and double ram these ships. So due to our deeper formation, we were able to annihilate the enemy fleet in its entirety very, very quickly. And now with that fleet dealt with, that is their primary fleet that they have in the Aegean. They do have another smaller fleet that was hiding off the Peloponnese, so we're going to go hunt that down very quickly and we'll just auto-resolve it away. It shouldn't be too much of an issue whatsoever. And as far as I can see, this is the last of the Macedonian naval forces. However, I do find out a little bit later on that they do have more ships up in the Black Sea for whatever reason. However, they aren't really too much of a threat right now, so what I'm going to do is just disband our mercenary ships, get us our income back. We're actually doing quite well since we have recently suffered some heavy casualties, and so that will be helpful. Speaking of helpful though, King Arius marches back down to Anthea straight away, ignoring the Thracian army. They had, for whatever reason, got up into the mountains above Anthea. They were hiding out in the hills in the forest, and as such, we just went back and took the settlement instantly. And this time, we're going to liberate it. Now, I know this hasn't worked out before, but my thinking is that this will be very temporary. I'm just wanting to get a ally there, so one, they can give me a bit of money through trade and whatever, but also so that they can provide a garrison at the town, since I right now don't have the capabilities to occupy Anthea and Odysseus at the same time. We only have King Arius in the region. All of our other armies are either in Greece or in the east or down in North Africa, so I'm trying to rely on them to hold the town just for a few more months. But in the meantime, we have a major development in our war. Rome finally gets involved and declares war on Macedon. Now, this won't have an immediate impact on the war. The Roman legions are nowhere near the border of the Macedonians. However, they do have a couple towns that are bordered with Macedon, so I'm hoping that Macedon will take these settlements from Rome, and then as a result, I will then be able to come in and take them. But in the meantime, though, we are launching a counter-offensive against Larissa. They do have a fairly large garrison there, in addition to an army supporting the garrison. I did end up fighting the battle manually, but I'm not going to bother showing it to you guys. It was a fairly straightforward battle. We had missile superiority and we had siege equipment, so it was basically just a matter of the enemy charging into our pikemen and us surrounding them with our swordsmen. So the battle that was the army that was previously disgraced at Larissa and lost General Cherephon, may he rest in peace, has now regained their honor and taken back Larissa. However, we are still definitely not out of the dark just yet. The Macedonians still have a lot of forces, but this is a sign of things to come. It is definitely a good omen. We're now finally making some serious gains against the Macedonians themselves. We're killing their troops. But once again, the Thracians slip out. They somehow managed to escape our ally that we had just liberated, and I'd actually moved King Arius to the west a little bit further inland instead of chasing them down. I let them come back and take Odysseus. While it is annoying, it's not the end of the world, because now the Thracians are all in one little pocket. They're all stuck inside the settlement of Odysseus. They have no navies outside of it. They just have this one large army in the city. So King Arius is now going to come back and deal with them once and for all finally. This isn't the last Thracian tribe that we'll be fighting, but this is the last Odrysian tribe that we'll have to deal with. And so we end up fighting that manually. We end up wiping them out completely, and we get a resounding victory against them. And we will now occupy Odysseus. Previously, I had looted it to get us a little bit more extra money, but now we will just occupy it, and we will hopefully hold on to it from now. But the Macedonians come back and answer our capture of Larissa. They come with two mid-sized Macedonian forces, but again, the majority of their armies are coming up with very elite troops, and yeah, auxiliaries that they're using are actually very useful. So this is going to be a difficult battle, to say the least, and it's a vital one that we need to win. If we can take out these two armies, then it leaves the Macedonian capital open for the taking. And we are not mucking around, we're jumping straight into this battle. One thing I did, instead of just sitting inside the town, I actually sallied out, and we are now fighting on a battlefield that is very hilly outside of the settlement, a few kilometers away. And there's this one central hill that is super steep all around it, so I'm basically going to be camping on top of it, and we have our pikemen sitting on top in their formation, and the enemy have to charge up an insanely steep incline towards us, and as such our infantry will have a massive advantage, as with our skirmishers and our siege equipment. Although I do need to be careful with my siege equipment and that they don't just do some friendly fire. On the right hand flank though, the enemy comes at us with a lot of cavalry, and I mean a lot. They had at least probably about 7 or 8 units of cav in their whole 2 armies combined, and they're sending in the majority of them on our right hand flank, and I have 1 unit of cav on the right combined with swordsmen, so it's not ideal, but the enemy is again charging up an insanely steep hill, and as such we should still get the advantage over time. On the left hand flank we also have swordsmen and 1 unit of cav combined with a couple of our garrison. The garrison from Larissa was insanely depleted. It had like 1 turn to replenish, so the majority of these units are almost entirely useless, but we did have a couple cav units that would join in the fighting. And we're now using Tarentine cavalry, which are some of the best cav, the most versatile and useful in the game for sure, especially when you're playing as a Hellenic faction. So the Tarentines will definitely lead the charge against the enemy cav. The center we're holding fairly well, although we are taking casualties on some of our pikeman units due to enemy skirmisher fire. And so I'm going to be trying to outflank the enemy very heavily on the left hand side. However, the reinforcing army that had joined the battle for the Macedonians was now committing a lot of their infantry into one giant blob on our left hand flank, and even though we're getting some cavalry cycling charges happening right here, you can see our swordsmen that are down there are definitely going to get surrounded, and they're going to get surrounded by pikemen and armor piercing axemen units, so that's very scary, and it could result in a lot of Spartans being killed. But a little bit more positively, back towards the center, we are now whittling down the last of the Macedonians who had marched against us there, and we've basically annihilated the majority of their cavalry that was on our right hand flank. I don't know how we did it without any spearmen, but we did it. Perhaps it's a testament to the Spartan thorax swords that we're now using, but we managed to do it. However, our left hand flank is in massive jeopardy. Our Spartan swordsmen here are getting jabbed in the back by pikemen, and they also have axemen and swordsmen charging at them from uphill. So I have my cavalry coming in to try and help out, and I've also managed to rotate a few of my pikemen units over to help them. And now I'm going to retreat my thorax swordsmen and then form a new battle line a little bit further up the hill, just to try and make things a little bit more clean. As you can see, this entire battle is a complete and utter mess. It's very ugly at the moment. Zooming out with the UI turned back on though, we can see that our right flank is almost entirely freed up. We're basically just hunting down a general. Then that will be it for the right. The center is basically free as well. The entire battle is now hinging on the left hand flank prevailing. And it's looking relatively promising, although we have taken a very large amount of casualties. And most of those casualties are belonging to Spartan units. So basically when we lose 1,000 men, that's really more like losing 2,000 of any regular men. So that's really going to hurt us in the long run, but as long as we can wrap up this left hand flank quickly, then hopefully our casualties won't be too severe so as to stop this army from continuing its campaign. But I'm basically just counting on those cycle charges coming in from the left to help out the most. And then we commit the center of our army to charging down the hill and engaging the enemy. And once we do that, combined with sending in our cav from the right hand flank, we see a lot of the enemy units routing en masse. However, looking back up on the hill is covered in thousands of dead men, and a lot of them are our own. Like I said, we took some pretty heavy casualties in this battle. However, the Macedonians took way more than us. And as such, we actually do get the victory, despite them having overwhelming numbers against us. Our defensive position on top of the hill proved to win the day for us. The Spartans win. Here are these statistics if you do want to see it. We ended up losing over 1,200 Spartans in exchange for killing 4,400. Now you will see we are using Tarentine Cav and Cretan Archers. That's right, we're starting to get a little bit more mainstream now. It's about time we started getting them into our armies. But our Spartan units themselves were really decimated. They did get quite a few nice kills, but a lot of our units are also dying without getting too many kills. And that's because we are really suffering against enemy skirmishes. So basically, my lesson that I'm learning throughout this video, and by the end of it I'll be changing things, is that I need more cavalry. I need to deal with the enemy skirmishes way faster, otherwise our superior quality units are just dying for nothing. Speaking of needing cavalry, though, I'm sending out Cleomenes III after he's had a few months to recover. He's now marching on Cyrene. That's right, the Egyptians took out our ally Cyrenaica, and now Cyrene is completely under their control. And as such, we will now be besieging the settlement before they have time to recruit more men and form a large garrison. However, they do have quite a few armies nearby that have a clump of units to each army. And after besieging the settlement for a few months, they actually all grouped up and attacked us all at once. So now Cleomenes is entirely overextended. He doesn't have much cavalry at all. And the Egyptians are coming with some high tier units, and a lot of them. They have over 9,000 men coming at us here against our 4,000. Cleomenes is in a massive tough spot. We may be losing yet another Spartan hero here. And of course, the terrain is terrible, so as such, we are basically doing a deep formation with 3 lines initially, although we will spread out to form a V-shaped formation. And we're just trying to stay up on top of the hill. This whole battlefield is just one large sloped hill. We're trying to stay as high as we can, and we're basically just marching forward towards the enemy and just looking for a fight. There's nothing else we can do, really. We have a lot of Galatian men at the front. We also have some Spartan thorax swordsmen who will form a second line, and they will divert to the right hand flank as we march forward. And we have some naked Galatians, Syrian heavy archers, and then elephants in the rear. So generally speaking, it's quite a good army. However, it's very sword heavy, and most of our Galatian units don't have very good armor or defense. So as such, as time goes on and they get stuck in a grind out fight, they will start to die quite quickly. Here you can see just how massive the enemy army is. They are coming at us in a very disjointed formation, but they are still basically just swarming us. That's what these enemies that have so many more troops than us are just doing. Even though we're kind of camping against a red line here on the left-hand side of our army, it still doesn't really give us all that much to work with. The enemy will still be using a lot of their cavalry to try and outflank us. On the left-hand side, they'll be charging in instantly. On the center, they will charge in, but a little bit disjointedly, and as such, they will make our formation break up as well, because I'm trying to get charges on them, because a lot of our units do well in the charge. On the right hand flank, they have a lot of cav coming up against us, supported by some pikemen and spearmen, but I'm not trying to mess around there. I'm trying to get my elephants involved early so they could come in and deal with the enemy cav and reduce their major advantage over us, which is having a lot of cav, and we have almost none. We have the elephants and 1 cav unit, so if we don't nullify their cavalry advantage, then this whole thing is going to go down very, very quickly. However, in the center, the enemy gets 2 massive holes against us. We basically were stretched out of our formation too quickly, and as such, they were able to punch through some of their heavier units and just basically push our units out of the way. So now our archers have to start fighting, and on the right hand side, I'm basically cycle charging my elephants multiple times to try and break the enemy cav and their spearmen over there. After several more minutes, our elephants are still cycle charging. They're starting to get a little bit tired now. However, we are starting to make some of the enemy units rout over here, especially when their cavalry charges into our elephants. They get absolutely annihilated when they're charging directly into us. So that will help out a bit, and we do start to make some of their shock cav waver, and they even ended up routing. But the pikemen that they have over here are really fantastic, and they're just not breaking. It's super frustrating. I was really surprised at how resilient the enemy infantry was. I'm not used to this from the Egyptians. Maybe the Macedonians, but the Egyptians, they seem to have come a long way since we last encountered them on the battlefields of Anatolia. So this is a whole new beast now. After several more minutes of recharging, we finally break some of those pikemen units and some of their spearmen. However, there's even more just a little bit further up the battle line there, so I'm going to be recharging my elephants still, but I'm going to also not be committing just to the right flank there, and I will send them around towards the center eventually. But our center is crumbling. We have archers basically holding our main battle line formation in the center. The left hand flank is going nowhere. Our Galatians are getting ground down. We can't outflank due to the red line being present. And on the right hand side, we have our cav and elephants outflanking the enemy, but they're getting tired now and they're getting killed off. Our elephants have taken a lot of skirmisher fire, and they're basically just getting exhausted to death. We've done so many recharges by this time. We do get a little bit of a positive thing though. On the left-hand flank, we finally get a small breakthrough, and as such, I will try to micro our Galatians to try and get some rear charges. And while that's happening, on the right-hand flank, we start to get a lot of enemy units wavering, so I'll have my cav and elephants charge into them, but the enemy starts to realize our main thing that we have over them is elephants. So what they're going to do repeatedly now is charge their cav into my elephants, which generally isn't a good idea unless my elephants are sitting still. And some of these cav units will actually have equipment that's not really all that bad to take out elephants. So the more cav that they send after us, the faster our elephants will get worn down, which is a little bit scary. And even though we have this outflank on the left-hand side, it's still not really yielding a lot for us. Our Galatians are exhausted by this time, and the majority of them have lost at least 2/3 of their men, many more even more. And here we are seeing again more of the enemy cav hunting down my elephants. This is now a general's bodyguard unit, and you can see our elephants are barely moving. They've killed over 600 men at this point. They've lost about half of their unit, and the rest of our army is basically on the point of breaking. We've lost about half of our troops. The units who are left are exhausted, and they've lost many of their men in their units, and their elephants are about to rout, as are our cavalry. Our elephants did fantastic. They got over 600 kills in bad circumstances, but at this point, with the enemy specifically targeting my elephants with their cav, it was just too much, and eventually our elephants are now finally routed. We lose our one little ace up our sleeve that we had in this battle, and now that's basically it, ladies and gentlemen. I wish that I could say we pulled this victory out of our butts somehow, but we just didn't. Our troops weren't meant for it. Our thorax swordsmen are fantastic units, but they're not designed for this type of fighting. And the Galatian mercenaries and Syrian auxiliaries, while useful, they just can't handle this many men coming at them. Like I said, over 9,000 men are marching against our 4,000. Cleomenes does stay and fight to the end, but he is no General Cherephon. He is not going to bring down 1,000 men with him. He will kill a few hundred. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we've lost yet another noble Spartan hero. I don't know how we did it, but we did it. I couldn't believe it. We've lost yet another Spartan hero. Here are the statistics if you do so wish to see them. 4,200 Spartans against 9,000 Egyptians. It just wasn't happening. Maybe if we had a lot more pikemen, we could have held a solid battle line against the enemy, but we just didn't. Our army consisted almost entirely of swords and archers. That's pretty much it, and it just wasn't designed to deal with so many cav and skirmishers coming at them. So basically, the bottom line for today's episode is that I need to rearrange our armies to have a lot more cavalry. If we have cav, we can deal with their archers and their cav, and then we can outflank them a lot faster. So it's a very tough lesson to be learned, but hopefully it wasn't in vain, and as such our further campaigns or our upcoming campaigns will be a lot more successful. But now the Egyptian remnant actually has a chance of reclaiming Egypt. We do need to recruit a brand new army quickly, and hopefully it will be just in time to stop them from reclaiming their homeland. But in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to leave it on Cleomenes' funeral. Thank you all for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I shall see you in the next one. Rest in peace, Cleomenes, mate. See you later.